guys know that we had something?
I remember after one of the camps up there at the Bergen County Technical School, you know, we came in from a Friday night through a Sunday, and it was like maybe 3 o'clock on a Sunday. Everything was wrapping up, and I remember the staff sat us down. And this was probably beginning of May camp, just as things were starting to ramp up. And I remember, you know, Hannah saying that if you guys keep this going on, what you could have is something really, really special. And I remember we all looked around the room like, what does he mean? I felt a vibe. There was definitely something going on.
So Higgins, we weren't we got criticized a lot for not being a big visual line. We didn't do a lot of visuals.
Yeah, I hate visuals.
We hated visuals?
I think one of the things that was always so cool about those 80s drum lines was that there was a style about them that was just, you know, kind of cool. We did something that was different, that was unique. There was an aesthetic, I think, to those Cadets lines that nobody else was doing at the time. I mean, everybody else was about flash and, you know, what you're doing in the parking lot. But, you know, for us, I think it was about what we did on the field. And it was about the music, it was about the playing. And, you know, I understand the criticism from other people at the same time. But I mean, 87, that was a crazy drill that year. We were in forms with the horns and the guard. I mean, that had never been done before. You know, there is an aesthetic, I think, that Hannah was trying to put out there. And, yeah, I mean, I musically, nobody else was doing that at the time. He separated himself from the pack by doing that.
But the thing I think you were hinting towards is what I think the bigger thought of the Cadets were, and you've heard me say this a couple times, is you guys wouldn't play for 16, 24 bars, but then you would play 10 of the grossest, nastiest, craziest, where the hell did that come from stuff. And I think cats who knew what was up, yeah, Blue Devils are great. They look great in the parking lot. But Cadets, you know, but the Cadets, man.
A big thing for us all those years too was quality of sound. You know, what we played, we hyper focused on that idea that what we were playing sounded great from individually as a line, everybody. That was a big thing that we talked about over and over and over. And I think those other drum lines were playing a lot more, which was cool. And I respect what they were doing too, but I don't think they had the same quality of sound.
So we had reached such a level because of the amount of practice and effort that had gone into the summer of consistency of quality. They just said, okay, you know, take a break. Now it started to become, let's maintain that confidence so that when we get on the field at prelims and finals, it just takes care of itself.
We didn't see Cadets until late in the year. I think it was Huntington, West Virginia. The Cadets had just picked up the ballet dancer that was featured in the beginning of Appalachian Spring. And I saw that first movement, and I get a little goosebumps now even thinking of it, because I went, there's no way we're beating that.
On tour, we were in Orlando, and we saw Gail Royer standing on the track watching the show. We knew he wasn't there to see us or Spirit. He was there to see Garfield, and that just added confirmation that if Garfield gets this clean, they're going to be unstoppable.
You guys had to watch us do our thing first before you went out. So I can't imagine what it would have been like to, you know, watch the other corps that you're neck and neck with do their thing, and it's a legendary show, and then you guys have to go out and do your thing. I seem to remember that you guys were right there, lined up, ready to go.
We weren't expected to win that night, and even though we won prelims, the expectation was on Santa Clara to win. The pressure really wasn't on. I don't think any of us felt that pressure. We just felt we just have to put on the best show we possibly can that night.
I love that. Yeah, and Mike, you've said that a million times. Was that was you guys' mindset kind of through the season, was that you just work hard and at the end of the day you lift your head up and let's see where we're at. You know, it wasn't so much as we got to go out and win. We got to go out and win. And I love that.
Yeah, it wasn't like, okay, let's go get them.
We didn't really so much care what other people were doing. I don't remember hearing anything from the Vanguard before we went on.
We really didn't talk about competition that summer. We were more or less just so focused on what we were doing on a daily basis. I don't even remember what was going on in the stadium. I just remember what we were doing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I remember that the finals performance was, we just played and had fun, and it was still pretty darn clean, and the pressure was off, if you call it pressure, because we were also focused. We wanted to do well, and we did, but all we had to do then is just march and play.
We kind of look at the percussion section like there's no way they're going to beat us.
What are your thoughts on the perfect score, Willie?
Wasn't high enough. I mean, I thought that they should have gone higher than 30, to be honest. I mean, I think that everybody has this thing about the perfect score that it was subjective. It was three guys, you know, that night who loved the show, and they were trying to make a statement, I think.
You know, it's funny that summer when we first got a perfect score in Iowa, it started to become clear that we could actually get a perfect score. Like, that was never heard of up until that point.
I think the mentality of a drummer in particular is that perfection is impossible.
I think there was a lot going into that, a lot of momentum. I also reflect on the incredible hard work that this team put in across the whole ensemble to make it work from front to back.
We knew we were not perfect,
but we still had to go out and perform it. We still had to go out and execute it.
But we were really good. And so it was really hard for us to swallow that anybody could actually achieve perfection in that activity.
It had to be really, really, really good. It may not have been perfect that night, but it had to be remarkable.
We have this idea that percussion really can't ever be perfect. You know, it's different than I think with brass and color guard, just because we're so error focused.
At the time, you're just kind of going, no way, what's going on? There's three guys, the same, you know, it was very, very hard to swallow for us.
I think as drum corps was moving from the tick system to the build-up system with the criteria, people's minds were still in the old tick system where it had to be a flawlessly executed show.
We wanted to play a perfect show. We did as a drum line.
I mean, it wasn't that much of a surprise, I think, when it did happen.
The criteria that was written at the time, we maxed out on.
Right.
Could not give us any more credit because we maximized what that criteria was.
It wasn't the only perfect score we had, by the way, too. We had several that year.
I think it really, really took the mystique out of the pursuit of perfection for a lot of the guys in the line as well.
I think for a lot of the other drum lines at that time, though, they felt like it was a dagger in the back or something. You know, they had a hard time kind of walking away. It seemed to me that the judging community was saying this is where we would like things to kind of move.
I don't think you guys necessarily played a perfect show. I don't know if that's possible. If you're asking who was the cleanest that night, I'm going to say Blue Devils were probably the cleanest. They played the fewest amount of ticks. But if you ask who the judges and DCI probably said, hey man, this is where we want the activity to go. This is the future.
Okay, fine. You can make a statement, but you can't take a dirty drum line and make a statement.
A half a point, that's a statement.
They didn't just make a statement. We made a statement, you know?
If it's by 0.2 of a point or 1/10 of a point, okay, they were better that night. But when at that level to be beaten by a half a point and then your core only lose by 1/10 of a point, that's a statement.
I know you don't win drums on the most notes played, but if 86 won, 85, 84, and 83 won, 87 was just a continuation.
I think everybody gets caught up in the scores maybe too much. I think even if we hadn't won that year, I don't think it would have been that devastating to us, to be honest with you. The scores were probably like second or third on the list, I think for us. First of all, I think we just wanted to play well and, and kind of enjoy what we were doing. But I don't know, I think we were all brainwashed to not care about scores too much. And, that sounds like a cliche sometimes when you hear people talk about that with the cadets, but I think we really bought into that stuff. I think we really did. People do talk about the perfect score a lot, but I don't know. I don't know that we thought about it necessarily that much.
Well, I'm starting to do that right now because to a man, every person that when Mike would say it to me when we first met, I just thought he was blowing smoke a little bit. But unless all of you guys have gotten together on a group call and said, this is what we're going to say, has said that. Every single person has said that, whether it be from the pit to Nicole to the bass drum, everybody says it. That's whether we would have, the first thing that comes to my mind is whether we had won or lost, it would have been the same. I love that. And then I also, to a person, we didn't think the score was inconsequential. It was just go out there and do your thing, do the best that you can do, and that's what it is. And Mike told me something that is brilliant and I love is how can you base your whole season and your feeling about yourself and the outcome on the thoughts of 9 people on one night, and that's brilliant.
Well, there's something you can't affect, right? The only thing that you can affect is what you're doing on your own with your performance. There's no way you can affect what those 3 people are going to think or what the crowd's going to think, right? I mean, you only have power over the thing that's right in front of you. I think we all understood that very clearly.
Yeah.
Amazing is that though at 17, 18 that you can grasp that concept. A 50-year-old me understands that that's it. That's how I want to approach life. But at, I was 18, 17 turned 18. It's win. And if you don't win, you didn't achieve your goal and you failed.
There are other drum lines at the cadets where we felt like we played really, really well as well at finals and didn't get a score.
It's very important from all of us on the Santa Clara side to let you guys know it wasn't about you or that we had a thing against you. It was just that score. It was just the score and what it was saying.
And now, the decision of the judges.
We were marching off the field of the finals retreat, and Paul Gassimer coming up and flashing his fingers, yelling at us that Garfield got a perfect score, and we're just like, oh, or BS, no way, it's no way.
How do you guys feel about Santa Clara and Blue Devils' reaction at retreat?
I thought it was entertaining. It kind of added to the whole victory that year. I mean, the fact that people had such an extreme reaction, smashing in drum heads, coming out drunk onto the field and pointing at us and shouting at us. It was awesome, actually.
I remember Float and I think Catherine was there as well, and they were coming up. Hey, we love you guys too, man. Like he's like coming right up to us, and we didn't know what the hell to do. It was like, oh, okay, thanks, yeah, we love you too.
I felt like we were kids marching with and watching men play, and I'm like, they look like they're 10 years older than us. And to have the Vanguard play Russian Christmas music, which is something I grew up listening to my brother actually play in the Crossman. And to me, it was kind of like, wow, this is surreal, what's happening right now.
And then I just remember the passion when the Vanguard played to us. That was big. I mean, I loved it. It was incredible just to see you guys, just so angered, but the music was so like in your face. It was awesome. It was just awesome.
At the same time, I'm looking at Lee Rudnicki, who stood next to me for a year, and I felt terrible for him as an individual. I didn't know the rest of you, but he was a guy that I stood next to and listened to and learned from in a really big way. And I kind of, my heart went out to him at that night. that.
I was at college with Lee Rudnicki for a year. He was on our college drumline for 1 year. And, you know, I felt bad for him and the whole drumline too, because you guys looked angry, but the chops and the incredible playing that you did.
And actually, I think the reaction, you know, from people was frustration at change. That change was coming, and that if you didn't change, this is what was probably going to happen. To be honest with you, everybody did change.
I think the mentality on our side was, we're just going to be this dynasty that, you know, it's going to be hard to beat us.
You can't deny the fact that the 84 through 80 whatever drum corps, cadets corps, changed everybody. Everybody started to march. Everybody started to play more musically as a result. It was powerful. It really was.
I wouldn't say we didn't play musically. I think we played musically different, but I will agree with you 1,000,000,000% is that 87 Garfield changed everything. Everything that came, they're like the Wagner of lines. Like everything that happened after that was radically different.
Cadets were so different than everybody else. I mean, it really was like apples and oranges. I think that if you look at the drum lines who are below us, probably the next 4 or 5 lines, we're all very, very similar. They're all playing really well, playing a lot of notes, but I think that we were already several years ahead. I think that's the thing about some of those cadets corps from the 80s, was that they were not just different, they were already several years ahead of where everybody else was at, you know, and a lot of that goes into, it's chalked up to design, you know, and the people who are working together designing the corps.
Yeah.
At that time.
The thing that strikes me still most when I watch those videos is not even about drumline to drumline or corps to corps so much, but it's the way the cadets handled themselves. There's all that chaos and all the other activities that were going on the field, and many of us were just stoned. And I kind of like that. That's one of the things that attracted me to the Garfield Cadets, is that discipline on and off the field. And I try to carry that with me, and I get emotional when I talk about it because I love it. It's good stuff.
And believe me, everybody else noticed that. I know they called you guys robots, and we called you guys the assassins, but it was great from the outside, definitely, and I admired it for sure.
I think that was one of the most beautiful things about our 1987 drumline, is that the chemistry was really, really nice.
We all got along great. As long as you played clean, you were part of the family. If you weren't, then you didn't get to eat dinner that night.
How did we find out the 30 score?
I'm pretty sure it was Linda. She was out there with the camera, and I think she said, "You guys got a perfect score. You got it." Yeah.
Looking back on it, you study it, you're like, well, that is just so amazing. What an achievement. And, you know, all the respect and congratulations are certainly in order because of how well coordinated that show was, how well performed it was. And just the writing was just such a, you know, to me, as a dabbling type of drum corps writer, you just look back on it and you say, they really, really did something special that year.
I gave him a 10. What'd you give him? I gave him a 10 too. Like, hey man, I don't know what you guys did, but I gave him a 10. And they're like, oh crap. All three of us, we're out.